Hello, I'm Kendra from Kendra Perry Nutrition, and this week we are discussing endometriosis. Okay, so you're probably wondering what the heck this is, but basically, I'll sort of break it down for you. So every month, your uterus builds a lining, right? Does so to sort of prepare for pregnancy. So if you don't get pregnant, your body will shed this as a period. So you get your period every month, and that is your uterine wall shedding. So basically, endometriosis is a condition where that uterine lining or that tissue actually grows outside the uterus. So it happens in the abdominal cavity, but it's also been found in other places in the body. So basically what happens is that tissue kind of overgrows, it irritates the nerves, so it can lead to a lot of pain. And then sometimes what the body will do is it will actually form a cyst around that tissue to kind of try to stop it from proliferating. And if that tissue kind of continues to grow within the cyst, it can actually lead to a ruptured cyst, which is incredibly painful. So symptoms of endometriosis would be painful periods, chronic pelvic pain, pain during intercourse, and actually infertility. So that's a really, really common symptom of endometriosis. So how do you get endometriosis? Well, there's a number of theories. I can't say that anyone really knows for sure, but anything that basically can affect estrogen levels can definitely lead to this. So what the hormone that actually grows the uterine wall is estrogen. Estrogen is a growth hormone, and that's basically what leads to that growth. So when estrogen gets too high, it can lead to this problem. So liver congestion can definitely cause this. Liver is meant to sort of clear excess hormones from the blood. So if the liver's not functioning properly, then estrogen can get too high. Gut dysfunction is a big part of this. Inflammation, which the gut can be a huge source of this, can actually cause the conversion of testosterone into estrogen. So that's another way your estrogen can get too high. Additionally, there is a really big component of microflora when it comes to estrogen. They seem to be very related. The estrobolone is actually what that's called, is a bunch of bacteria that has a pretty huge effect on estrogen levels. Other things that can lead to it would be a high carbohydrate diet, so a diet that's really high in sugar. Blood sugar fluctuations and insulin resistance can definitely affect estrogen. And then, a lot of exposure to sort of environmental estrogens, so BPA plastics, but also beauty products have a lot of synthetic estrogens in them, and household cleaning products. So those are ways that you can kind of get estrogen from an external source. Certain types of birth control will actually lead to estrogen dominance. The Mirena IUD is a common one for that. So those are sort of ways that you can get it. Any woman who has sort of ovarian cysts, that's also a pretty good indication that endometriosis might be a problem for you. And that's just because, if you're having cysts and you're not getting a cycle, it probably means that your progesterone is low. So you don't have those opposing effects, because progesterone really does sort of mitigate those more negative side effects of estrogen. So how do you know if you have endometriosis? Well, it can be really hard to detect. Typically, it's affecting 1 in 10 women, so about 10%, but it's probably a lot higher because a lot of women actually don't have any pain associated with this. So those women probably aren't seeking help, so they're not getting diagnosed. So typically what a doctor will do is they'll do an ultrasound. That's one way to detect it, although it's not the most sensitive. And if the tissue is deeper in the abdominal cavity or hidden, then sometimes it doesn't always get detected. You can get surgery, so you can go in and actually, surgically look for this, although again, that's not always 100%. And some physicians are actually pretty experienced with this, and they can do physical examinations and actually detect those adhesions. So that's another way. An osteopath might be able to do this and sort of find these adhesions around the uterus. So typically, how is endometriosis? How is it treated? Well, conventionally, sometimes they do nothing about it. Other times is surgery, so to go in there and actually remove those adhesions and lesions. So this can be really helpful, especially if you do have a lot of tissue buildup. Sometimes it's good to go in there and just clean it all out and start fresh, but generally this can't be the only thing that you do. And that's just because if you're not, stopping the reason this is happening to begin with, then it's just going to come back. So usually surgery, you want to use it with other options as well. Birth control pills is another really, really common one because you can take birth control pills to repress estrogen production, basically. So this can be really good for mitigating symptoms, but of course it's not really addressing the underlying cause, and you can't be on birth control forever, unfortunately. So at some point you're probably going to want to go off maybe to get pregnant, and then you're going to find yourself having all these fertility issues because now it's a pretty deep problem that's been going on for a while. Or you're going to have to go off at menopause, and you can sort of set yourself up for a pretty negative transition into menopause, especially if you have other hormonal imbalances that you've been repressing. Okay, progesterone cream is another way that can sort of offset those negative side effects of estrogen. Can definitely be helpful, but it's definitely not something that really works very well on its own. And then I find there's a lot of use of the non-steroid anti-inflammatory drugs or naproxen, so things like Advil and Aleve, which obviously helps with pain management, but doesn't, fix the problem. And obviously those side effects of those drugs can be nasty. It can thin the lining of the gut and mess with your liver. So, long term, that's not necessarily a good choice. So the good news is there is a lot you can do naturally to deal with this and definitely prevent yourself from having this happen in the future and preventing it from sort of messing with your fertility. And that's what I'm going to talk about in the coming weeks. We're going to talk about some of the diet, lifestyle, and supplement things that you can do to deal with this problem if it does in fact affect you, and if it doesn't, things you can do to prevent it from happening to you. So definitely make sure to stay tuned. And if you like this video and you want to learn in a little bit more detail, you can check out the blog post. You can find that at kendraperry.net/blog. That's where you'll find that article among with many other articles on hormones. So make sure to check it out. And if you have any questions or comments, you can leave me a comment on my Facebook page. My handle is @kperrynutrition.